Are sugars bad for health? Or which kind of sugars should we consume? These are one of the few questions that an individual thinks when he or she is about to take sugars. Welcome to ADP for Learning. I am Ashish Kutyal. Today we will learn about a new topic regarding the mysteries of sugars. We generally encounter sugar in two different ways in our food. The first kind of sugars exists in unprocessed foods such as fruits, vegetables, and dairy products. And the second type of sugar is added to packaged foods to boost flavor or allow food to be more shelf-stable. These added sugars are not chemically different from naturally occurring sugars. Both are broken down in the body using the same enzymatic processes. However, the amount and form of sugars we consume in fruits and vegetables, sodas, or in processed foods are different. Now the question arises, if the amount and form of sugars are different, how quickly our body absorbs them, and how the body signals and experiences satiety, or feelings of fullness. We can also classify sugars as simple and complex. All digestible carbohydrates enter the bloodstream as individual sugar units. Digestible carbohydrates, including complex, starches, and simple sugars, are all nutritionally similar in that they each provide 4 calories per gram. Common examples of simple sugars are glucose, fructose, and galactose. On contrary, examples of complex sugars are starch, maltose, lactose, and sucrose. They both are also chemically similar. More complex carbohydrates have to be broken into simple sugars before they can be absorbed, transported by the bloodstream, and used for energy. Carbohydrate breakdown takes place high in the digestive tract, and with high efficiency. Starch is broken into glucose units and absorbed at about the same rate as pure glucose. Likewise, sucrose is clipped apart and absorbed about as quickly as high fructose corn syrup. Now, the question arises: glucose and fructose have the same atoms, but why do they have different properties? As glucose and fructose have the same chemical formula, C6H12O6. But the atoms are arranged differently, giving the two sugars different chemical properties. The chemical structures of fructose and glucose influence their sweetness and how they are processed in the body. For instance, if we consider the parameter of sweetness, fructose tastes twice as sweet as glucose, and sucrose, which is composed of fructose and glucose linked together, is somewhere in between. The proportion of these sugars in foods, both natural and processed, affects how sweet different kinds of sugars taste alone and when added to processed foods. For example, gram for gram, agave nectar tastes sweeter than high fructose corn syrup, which tastes sweeter than sucrose. Also, if we consider the location as another parameter, glucose travels through the bloodstream to all of our tissues, and every cell in the body readily burns it for energy. In contrast, fructose is almost exclusively taken up and metabolized by the liver. Excess of both glucose and fructose is converted to fat and stored in the body. However, the fat made from glucose is more likely to end up in fat tissue, whereas fat made from fructose is more likely to accumulate in the liver. This buildup is called a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because it looks like what happens in the livers of people who drink too much alcohol. It has been seen that because agave nectar is made up of pure fructose, it can deliver more sweetness and fewer calories than other sugars, so it may seem like a better choice than table sugar. In reality, table sugar may be a healthier choice than agave nectar because it is less likely to cause fat to build up in the liver. Whatever sugar we choose, the key is moderation, that is, any sugar consumed in excess contributes to fat buildup. Now, another question arises: how glucose levels is regulated. The amount of glucose circulating in the blood of an average healthy adult is equal to only 1 or 2 packets worth. Yet, in a day, the brain alone uses about 25 packets worth. Our blood glucose concentration must be kept very stable. When blood sugar levels are too low, the brain can starve. When levels are too high, sensitive tissues and nerves, eyes, and organs can be damaged. To keep blood glucose steady, The body alternates between storing excess glucose after meals and supplying glucose to the blood between meals. Some glucose is stored in liver and muscle cells as glycogen, and some are converted to fat for storage in adipose tissue. As the body stores extra fuel as glycogen or fat. Most of our energy reserves are found in fat. While glycogen can be used to replenish blood sugar, fatty acids cannot. Only the small glycerol portion of fat can be converted to glucose, but glycogen is released very slowly only as fatty acids are being burned for fuel. Glycogen and glycerol are easily converted back to glucose. However, we cannot make glucose from fatty acids. When the body's supply of glycogen is depleted, as in the case of someone running a marathon, muscle proteins are broken down and used by the liver to regenerate blood glucose. So, it leads to another question: do the added sugar adds up any nutrient value to our diet? The answer seems to be no. As unprocessed fruits, vegetables, and whole grains supply moderate amounts of sugar, and they contain other nutrients that make them an important part of a healthy diet. But sugar itself is not an essential nutrient, and when consumed in excess it is a source of completely unnecessary calories. The typical American diet includes a substantial amount of processed food, and 74% of processed foods contain added sugar. On average, that adds up to 22 teaspoons of added sugar, an extra 350 calories, every day. Consuming large amounts of added sugars, particularly from sugar-sweetened beverages, increases the risk of developing obesity, type 2 diabetes, or cardiovascular disease. Experts are increasingly recommending that a healthy diet should limit added sugar to 10% of total daily calories. Are there any hidden sugars too, that can be tricky to spot on food labels? The answer is yes. Added sugars can be tricky to spot on food labels. They are often disguised under less sweet or natural-sounding names. Some of the more common sugary ingredients are beet sugarcane juice that consists of mainly sucrose, dextrose, fructose, lactose, maltose, and sucrose are nothing but the chemical names of specific types of sugar. Rice syrup brown rice syrup mainly consists of maltose and maltotriose, which is 2 or 3 glucose units. Corn syrup solids, which mainly consist of glucose. High fructose corn syrup, which consists of combination of glucose and fructose that is high in fructose compared to corn syrup, but same amount of fructose as table sugar. Malt syrup barley malt, which mainly consists of maltose. Fruit juice concentrate, which generally consists of fructose, glucose, and sucrose, whose proportions vary by fruit. Honey, which again consists combination of fructose and glucose. Maple syrup, which mainly consists of sucrose. Molasses, which also consists of sucrose. So, next question arises, that is consuming 1.2 large apples, 1.6 large oranges, or a 12-ounce can of soda delivers the same number of calories to your body. But the fruit will keep your body feeling satisfied for longer. Why? The previous statement is correct due to 5 major reasons. Number 1. Because it requires biting and chewing, fruit will arrive at the stomach more slowly. Number 2. Solid food spends more time in the stomach than liquid does. The stomach needs time to break food particles down before they are allowed to enter the small intestine. Number 3. The fruits contain 6 to 7 grams of fiber. As some of this fiber is broken down, the cells of the small intestine release hormones that signal feelings of fullness to the brain. Number 4. The sugar in the fruit takes a longer time to reach the small intestine, slowing its absorption into the bloodstream. In contrast, the sugar in the soda is absorbed very quickly, and often leads to a brief period of high blood sugar immediately followed by a blood sugar crash, when the body's hormones overcorrect in an attempt to keep blood sugar steady. Number 5. The fruit also has vitamins and other nutrients that the soda lacks, such as vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium. At the end, question arises, what keeps us coming back towards sugars? Or in other words, considering the risks involved in eating too much added sugar, why haven't more people cut back on their sugar intake? The answer of this question is complex and involves multiple factors. Number 1. Convenience. As unprocessed foods can take more time to prepare than ready-made processed foods, and people are spending less and less time preparing and eating foods at home. Number 2. Addiction. Humans and lab animals can experience a physiological addiction to sugar. In lab animals, sugar produces some of the same symptoms as drugs of abuse, including cravings, tolerance, and withdrawal. In people, sugar cravings are comparable to those induced by addictive drugs like cocaine and nicotine. Number 3. Marketing. Societies were built upon the farming and production of sugar. Processed food manufacturing is a high-profit margin industry in which a lot of financial interests are at stake, and processed food is heavily marketed. Number 4. Cost. The cost of sugar has decreased relative to other foods. This effect is most profound on people with limited food budgets, who may buy lower-cost processed foods over more expensive whole foods. Number 5. Habit. It may feel personally threatening for people to consider the choices and resources necessary to change their habits and diets. Thank you for listening and exploring the amazing journey of sugars that you consume or use on a daily basis. In the future, we will come up with more interactive topics. Meanwhile, don't forget to like, share, and comment.